There is a moment just before you fall asleep when the body gives up the performance of being upright and dignified. Muscles unknot, the jaw slackens, and an almost imperceptible tremor passes through the legs like a secret handshake between the nervous system and the dark. Most nights we rush past that moment, chasing the next thought, the next scroll, the next worry about tomorrow. Tonight, I'd like us to linger there, to stretch that half second into 10 deliberate minutes, and to notice what quietly slips out of the pockets we didn't know we had. Let's begin with the simplest observation, your breath. Without changing it, feel where it arrives first. For many, the air stops high in the chest, as though the lungs have posted sentries at the gate. Somewhere below, the diaphragm presses against a tight drum of muscle, politely refused entry. That drum is the psoas, two thick cables that run from the 12th rib along the spine and stitch themselves to the inner thigh. When danger appears, a slammed door, a harsh email, the echo of a parent's raised voice, the psoas contracts first, curling the body into a question mark long before the mind forms the word duck. Over decades, the question mark hardens into posture, shoulders forward, hips tucked, the whole torso braced for a blow that never quite lands. The muscle learns to stay ready. The nervous system, grateful for the vigilance, keeps the light on. And the electric bill, paid in sleepless nights, clenched teeth, and that subtle shoulder hike you only notice when someone else points it out, quietly bankrupts the present moment. Now, roll the timeline back further. In 1944, Dutch children starved under Nazi blockade. Their bodies, resourceful and cruel, turned down every non-essential process. Growth slowed, hormones recalibrated, and tiny chemical tags, methyl groups, snapped onto their DNA like padlocks marked "Do not open until peacetime." When those children grew up and had babies, the padlocks were still there. The grandchildren, born decades later and thousands of miles away, entered the world with the same thrift metabolism, the same quick trigger stress response. In other words, the suitcase was packed before they took their first breath. Scientists call this epigenetic inheritance. Grandmothers call it the family way of worrying. Either way, the tension is carried in muscle fibers and blood cells, not in the abstract realm of thought. You can't think it away because it never arrived as a thought. But the body is not merely a museum of old alarms. It is also an exquisitely polite organism waiting for permission. Watch a deer freeze in headlights, then bolt into the forest. Within seconds of reaching safety, the entire animal convulses. Neck, flanks, legs, a full-bodied shrug that flings the adrenaline out through the skin. The deer does not schedule a therapy appointment, it simply completes the cycle. Mammalian bodies are wired for resolution. Humans, gifted with imagination and cursed with self-consciousness, rehearse the threat long after the threat is gone. We freeze halfway, then sit in traffic rehearsing the argument, replaying the childhood humiliation, tightening the exact muscles that would have carried us out of danger if we'd actually run. The energy, never discharged, pools in connective tissue, thickens fascia, and calcifies into the chronic ache between your shoulder blades that massage therapists politely call storage. So when I ask you in a moment to lie on the floor and let your legs shake, I am not inviting you to perform a quirky wellness trick. I am asking you to finish the sprint you never got to run, to complete the sway you never got to dance, to answer a letter that arrived 30 years late. The tremor is not the problem. It is the punctuation mark at the end of a sentence that has been running without pause since before you could read. Let's set the scene. Choose a place where no one needs you for 10 minutes. Turn the lights low, not for mood, but because overhead lighting is a vigilance cue. Your brain is wired to squint and scan under fluorescence. Lie on your back, knees bent, feet flat. If your lower back protests, slide a pillow under the sacrum. Now, simply feel the weight of your body against the floor. Notice the places where the floor meets you immediately: heels, calves, shoulder blades, and the places where there is a gap, the small of the back perhaps, or the hollow behind the skull. Those gaps are trust falls. Your body is willing to be caught, but only if the floor keeps its promise. Bring your attention to the breath again. Without forcing, allow the inhale to travel a little lower. You might feel the belly soften, the pelvic floor widen. If the chest still hijacks every inhale, place one hand on the sternum and one on the navel. Give the lower hand permission to rise first. The upper hand is simply a witness, not a critic. Stay here until the breath feels like a slow tide rather than a series of small gasps. Now bend one knee toward the chest and then the other. Gently rock side to side. If this were a cartoon, we'd call it getting the sillies out, but the body is serious business. You are coaxing synovial fluid through hip sockets, reminding the psoas that it is allowed to shorten and lengthen instead of staying half-cocked. After a minute or so, let the feet return to the floor, and notice whether the low back has melted closer to the ground. If it hasn't, rock a little longer. The goal is not athletic, it is conversational. When you're ready, press your feet down and lift your hips into a gentle bridge. Think of rolling up one vertebra at a time, like a string of pearls lifting off a table. Hold for the length of 2 slow breaths, no more. Then lower down even more slowly. Somewhere between the lowering and the moment your pelvis settles, you might feel the first flutter. It could be a tiny vibration in the thighs or a ripple across the abdomen. The mind, startled, will leap in. What is that? Am I doing it right? Should I stop? Smile at the mind, the way you would at a nervous friend, and stay. The tremor is not a performance. It is a conversation in a language that predates grammar. If nothing happens, that is also information. Sometimes the nervous system needs 3 or 4 invitations before it believes the party is safe. In that case, simply repeat the bridge. Lift, hold, lower, allowing the muscles to fatigue just enough to say, "Fine, you win, we'll shake." This is not coercion. It is courtship. When the tremor arrives, and for most people it does, the instinct is to clamp down. Instead, imagine you are holding a cup of water that is rippling from an earthquake you cannot stop. The goal is not stillness. The goal is not spilling. Let the knees knock, let the ankles wobble. You might notice heat, or unexpected tears, or a memory of the carpet in a grandmother's living room. Stay curious. The body does not release in chronological order. It unravels like a ball of yarn the cat has been secretly batting under the couch for years. After a few minutes, and it rarely takes more, the tremor will taper. The body is economical. Once the charge is spent, it stops. Hug your knees gently into the chest. Feel the back body wide against the floor. If you sense any emotion, sadness, relief, giggles, allow it. The nervous system speaks in sensations first, words second. There will be time for analysis later, perhaps over tea, perhaps never. Slowly roll to one side and press up to sitting. Notice how the room looks softer, like someone adjusted the contrast. Stand up when you're ready and walk around. Many people describe the sensation as lighter, but that word is imprecise. It is more accurate to say the body has stopped bracing for a future impact that never arrives. The shoulders, no longer bodyguards, become balconies. The breath, no longer rationed, becomes currency you can spend on ordinary joy. Let's talk numbers, because some minds trust numbers more than poetry. In a 2023 clinical trial, college students who practiced guided tremoring twice a week for 4 weeks saw a 45% drop in self-reported anxiety and a 30% increase in heart rate variability, the gold standard measure of a flexible, resilient nervous system. Participants also slept an average of 34 minutes longer per night. One young man said he stopped grinding his teeth for the first time since middle school. Another said she finally understood why her mother ironed tablecloths at midnight and forgave her. But the most common report is simpler. I feel like myself again. That sentence sounds small until you realize how many years you've spent feeling like a photocopy of a photocopy. Slightly blurred, edges frayed, colors off. The tremor restores the original saturation. There is a coda to every release. Integration. The body has just spoken in tongues. The mind deserves a translator. Some people journal for 5 minutes, others take a slow walk around the block. Hydrate. The nervous system is mostly water, and stories dissolve better in liquid. If you feel wired instead of calm, sway gently from side to side, letting the vestibular system know the world is still friendly. If you feel sleepy, honor it. The body is finally cashing the check insomnia has been writing for months. Over the coming days, you might notice small rebellions of ease. The car door no longer slams shut. The jaw unclenches during traffic. The coffee tastes like coffee instead of necessity. These are not coincidences. They are receipts. The energy you were spending on not feeling has been refunded to the present moment. Spend it recklessly on sunsets, on singing in the shower, on long answers to short questions. And when, inevitably, the shoulders creep back toward the ears because the world is still noisy and deadlines still bark, remember the floor is always there. 10 minutes, a gentle bridge, and the body remembers how to end the story it never started. The suitcase does not disappear, but it becomes lighter with every honest shake, until one day you realize you are carrying a key instead of a burden. And the key fits no lock you've ever seen because the door was inside your chest all along.